Hello? What? Willie Mays? Who's gay? Hello?
Hear me now?
What?
Can you hear me now?
Kind of.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, perfect.
7 days.
7 days? Oh my god, I'm gonna die next Monday?
Yes. No, wait, Monday? That would be 7 business days. This is 7 days starting now.
So 7 days to this very hour? My watch broke. How am I gonna know the exact hour?
Forget hours. This day, 7 days from now.
But there's a holiday coming up. Do you count the holiday as a day?
Well, that depends. What holiday?
Martin Luther King Day?
Then no.
Why not? Everybody at work is taking it off.
Jesus Christ, lady, I'm giving you 7 friggin' days. I can come over there now and kill the shit out of you if you'd rather have that.
Greetings. The 115th Congress has opened up in session. The Senate confirmation hearings have commenced for the Trump cabinet. And in 7 days, Donald J. Trump will be sworn in as our nation's 45th president. What does it all mean? What does it all mean? Well, here we are. We're going to give it an esoteric schmackdown and take a look if we can suss out some of the script of what's being cast before us as our government transitions from one body to another and from one philosophy to another. I'm Aubrey Force, the Modern Alchemist. Let's get started. Greetings and welcome to the Modern Alchemist channel. I'm Aubrey Forrest, the Modern Alchemist, and this is Talking Politics. On this channel, we're going to do it a little bit differently than what you probably see on CNN or MSNBC or Fox or any of the gazillion commentators out there, the bazillions of them, because there's a lot. Actually, we do an alchemical breakdown here. This is what we're doing here on the Modern Alchemist channel, an alchemical breakdown of what we see, because our country, the United States, was founded on esoteric principles by Freemasons who embodied those principles in pretty much everything they did, and everything they built, and everything they worked upon. And as a construct of that, our nation is founded upon those exact same principles, which we're going to give an esoteric schmackdown to. And in so doing, it might give you a unique perspective on what's taking place right now within our government, and what sources or from what powers are they drawing. And I don't mean like some boogada power. I'm talking if you were to identify this by utilizing the tree of life, the Kabbalah, as a means of interpreting what sources are they characterizing, what archetypes are they drawing upon, how would we frame their actions and their statements, we then are able to perhaps cast what they're doing in a different light. So that's what we're doing here on the Modern Alchemist channel. And I hope you enjoy it. Today what we're going to do is we're going to give our government a brief breakdown so that you can understand what specifically is the government of the United States. First and foremost, it is really important to recognize that an illusion has been cast upon us through repetition, where Americans believe that America is a democracy. It is not a democracy. As we have seen many times in our recent history, not the least of which was twice now in the last 16 years, the popular vote loser was not elected, was elected president. And actually, he was not elected, he was appointed president by the Electoral College. So those are functions of a republic, not a democracy. And the difference is that a democracy invites chaos. If there is a group or people who might be financially interested in the outcome of a particular nation, That group then is working from behind the scenes, controlling things usually through finances, like money, monetary things. In the case of the United States, the control is exerted through our debt currency that is provided us by the Federal Reserve. And there's a whole lot of stuff that you can go online and read about to learn about the structure of American debt currency and how it applies to the ever-increasing national debt, which is essentially built into that system. As a component, our country then is divided into three branches, but remember again that it is a representative, in other words, it's a republic, and specifically our republic, and this is a really dirty word, man, I hate using this word because it's been kind of badly represented in recent history. But traditionally, our country would have considered itself a fascist republic. And these things are actually embodied within the symbology that we use to characterize our nation. Not the least of which is the Lincoln Memorial, which is carved in stone and it's dedicated as a temple to the achievement of this man who is sitting there, Abraham Lincoln, enthroned, just like the Emperor card. And his hands are resting upon two fasciae. These are bundles of sticks which are combined together. That's why we call ourselves the United States, because a single stick is nothing, but you wrap them into a bundle, create a fasciae. Then you have a weapon, right? You have something that's formidable. So this is another element of our country, that we are united, meaning that our voice is heard collectively. And that is the essential guts of what our nation's intent is. Now, combined with that, then we have three branches of government. I know this sounds like, Saturday morning remedial, but I'm going to phrase this into alchemical terms again. Our government is divided into three branches. We have the executive branch, we have the legislative branch, and we have the Supreme Court, or the judicial branch. Now, these are actually divided quite neatly. They exhibit alchemical construction. So that the language itself, we term the legislature as a legislative body. And so the body then is attributed to the element of salt. And salt has certain characteristics which can be relied upon as a stabilizing element within an alchemical transmutation, as well as that salt can also be so stabilizing that it becomes intractable, which is written into the system. So the legislative body is designed to slow things down rather than move things along. The judicial branch then would be termed as Mercury, because this is where the language of our government is then parsed into its smaller components. And this is, of course, the bailiwick, the facility of Mercury, right? Which deals with speech and communication. And so the legal system then is very mercurial, and of course Mercury descends Kabbalistically on the right under the pillar of severity beneath Gubura, which is Mars, and it is residing in Hod, okay, which is Mercury. And this is the tool then of that component of government. I'm giving you a correspondence there just so you can kind of see it. Then the sulfur, which then exhibits where Mercury is the spirit and salt is the body, then the executive branch then is the embodiment, the incarnation into a singular person of the identifier of our nation, the president, right? The president is the one that is to represent many. Now that's important to remember. That also was built into the Constitution. So regardless of who has been appointed president by the Electoral College or who has been voted in as president by the people and the Electoral College and concurrent, voted and appointed, that president is to speak for all of us because they represent the embodiment not just of the people that supported them, but all of us esoterically. And so they are the soul incarnation, sulfur. They come, they manifest, they exhibit, and then they go away and a new one is elected, right? And that's the process of sulfur. So esoterically, our government is set up like that. Now, when you look into the two pillars of government, we have conservative and Republican on the literal right, which would then objectively or subjectively, if I'm the tree and my arms are the two pillars, this is the right and this is the left, right? Then descending this way, then the Republican Party descends on the pillar of severity under Saturn, and Saturn deals with all of our laws and stuff. So most government, in fact, almost everything to do with government other than perhaps business, business too, it all falls under the right because it all deals with rules and regulations. Now, partnerships and things like that, the social side of government is on the left. And this is headed by Chokmah, which is identified with the agent who's essentially the agent pro tem for Chokmah is the sun. It's residing there as an exemplar of what was present, that force in the universe, right, coming down. Then we have Jupiter, and then we have Venus. And these two, Jupiter is the guy who gets up and he says, hey, the needs of the few actually can outweigh the needs of the many, and you kind of have an echo of John Locke there, right, where if I violate the rights of a single person, then I violate the rights of every man, right? So Jupiter's over here, and our nation's emblem is the eagle, the bald eagle, and the eagle is a totem for the god Jupiter, or Zeus, right, under the planet Jupiter within the Kabbalah. So our principles, because we were founded during the Piscean Age, exist under liberty, and that's the foundation. We're in transition now. We're in a really big transition right now, and it's going to not be pleasant. I was hoping it would be, but I don't think so. So it's going to be a little bit of a struggle here. So it's important to understand what's going on, right? Because then you'll understand what you can draw upon and your role. Right now, based on what I have seen in the Senate confirmation hearings and understanding just the basics of this, right? Understanding that Saturn and Mars and Mercury are over here, and that the Sun and Jupiter and Venus are on the left, okay? Understanding that, you then can see where the government divides. So on the right, where we have the Republican Party, this is the pillar of severity, and it's identified under the Eye of Horus, which would be red, which falls under Saturn or Mars, depending upon which color, but specifically Mars. Okay, we're looking at Mars here. Mars, Mars, Mars. Remember this, okay? On the liberal side of things, on the Democratic side of things, we have Jupiter. And remember, I said Jupiter's like, hey, the little guy matters, right? Mars over here is completely the opposite. Mars is saying, no. In fact, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, and everyone better toe the line. That's Mars. Now, does this sound familiar? It should, because this is the Republican Party platform right now, and it's moving in that way. Mars is one. They both, Jupiter and Mars, can deal with fascism, but they do it in a different way. Jupiter organizes groups as individuals, and then they become a collective, like a federation. Mars organizes everything under a single tenet or precept, and it becomes empire. All right. So when you have the embodiment of the 16th president sitting there enthroned in a temple, and his hands are resting upon two fasciae, which form two pillars, you get a sense of the direction that this country was intended to take from its inception. And of course, remember Thomas Jefferson said manifest destiny. Those are empire statements. Those are statements of we're going to expand until we're done, and we've never stopped that. Colonization and empire expanding has not stopped with this country. We're still an empire. Although we say we're United States, but what we do is when we are in the world and we're navigating with military, that's empirical. So this is how you decipher this alchemically. Now, the reason I point this out is because we're moving in it from a transition. The Democratic Party likes to use Venus, which deals heavily in partnerships and relationships. And that can also be economic relationships, that can also prove to be personal relationships, societal relationships, cultural relationships. Venus works in those areas. And so when you have a government, for instance, a Democratic Party with a big D, functioning underneath that pillar of mercy, their first go-to thing is an economic sanction, because they want to pressure a partnership, of an economic and financial relationship between two nations. After hearing Rex Tillerson's comment to the Senate confirmation hearing, and the fact that now the Exxon CEO is not amenable to using economic sanctions because he believes those are bad for business.
Senator, I think it's important to acknowledge that when sanctions are imposed, they by their design are going to harm American business. That's the idea, is to disrupt America's business engagement in whatever country is being targeted for sanctions.
Because of that, I know exactly which side Rex sits on. Rex is sitting right there in the throne of Mars. Because if you take those kind of economic sanctions off the table, then the only thing you have left is war. And that's what Mars does. And Mars does that very well. I keep pointing this out because, guys, you can't fight Mars, and you can't fight people that are archetypally drawing from that psychic point, okay, whatever you want to call it, with the same thing. Fire does not fight fire, okay? It just burns more stuff up. And unless you're looking for a scorched earth tactic, that doesn't work. This is why you have to, in order to balance the equation, then there must be compassion brought to this. There must be love. There must be love. There must be a sense of partnership, and not one which is dictatorial. So, because that's not really the intent of our nation, and we don't want the executive, right now, the way it stands is this. If, assuming all the confirmation hearings go through, there's talk, people talk about, hey, should we impeach Donald Trump, right? Would it make a difference? Well, the truth is it won't. So Donald Trump gets sworn into office on the 20th. And let's say, for whatever reason, he decides he doesn't want to be president, okay? Well, maybe he does, like, hey, I'm just not going to do this, this won't be fun, or maybe something happens. I don't know. Well, then it falls to Mike Pence. And keep in mind, Donald Trump has himself said, I'm a hands-off CEO, right? I'm going to let all my smart people select more smart people, and they'll run it. This is an indicator that Trump is actually not the guy in charge. So those of you out there that are freaking out every time he opens his mouth, stop worrying about his mouth, as horrible as it can seem, and start looking at all the things that are going on at the same time that he's talking. Because, like I said before, when I explained this in my reading of the Economist magazine, and so far I've not been wrong. Everything, in fact, it's been spot on, right down to calling it for Trump's focus on economic growth in the Midwest. Called it all. It's all there, everything. And I'm just using the tools that I'm showing you right here to see it, okay? If he stops, well, anyway, so Mike Pence is the one who's organized everything, other than Trump pulling in relatives, right? So if Mike Pence decides he doesn't want to be president, then it would fall to the Speaker of the House, which is Paul Ryan. And we're right back to the thing that they talked about in 2012, where Grover Nordquist got up and he said, hey, we need this kind of guy for president. In fact, here's the quote.
We are not auditioning for fearless leader. We don't need a president to tell us what direction to go. We know what direction we want to go. We want the Paul Ryan budget, which cuts spending $6 trillion. We just need a president to sign this stuff. We don't need someone to think it up or design it. We have a House and a Senate. The leadership now for the modern conservative movement for the next 20 years will be coming out of the House and the Senate. So focus on electing the most conservative Republican who can win in each House seat and the most conservative Republican who can win in each Senate seat, and then pick a Republican with enough working digits to handle a pen to become President of the United States.
Yeah, plainest possible terms, And this is exactly the kind of president we have in office. So in terms of the pillar of severity and the Republican Party working on the conservative platform, they have achieved exactly every goal that they wanted within an election cycle. Yeah, it's amazing, really. So you have to recognize that there's a long game involved here, and the structure of this game is such that it's leveraging the properties inherent within our nation's construction, specifically the way the branches of government are divided. So if let's say Paul Ryan, who's the Speaker of the House, decides not to be president, now it goes to the Trump cabinet. And the first person on that list then is Rex Tillerson, who's the CEO of Exxon. And if he doesn't decide to be president, and the cabinet once confirmed, regardless of what the president and vice president do, the cabinet's still going to sit there unless someone fires them later, like the new president, unless the new president is a member of the old cabinet. Get me? So if that still doesn't work, then the Secretary of Treasury has to take over, and that's Mnuchin, who's your Goldman Sachs guy of 17 years. Yeah, the same Goldman Sachs that Trump said, hey, Hillary Clinton's in the pocket of these guys. Well, they're both in the pocket of these guys, and the way to figure all that out is just check out the lobbyist bodies that are functioning, the lobbying bodies that are functioning in Washington, D.C., and where all the money's going. You just have to follow the money. And then you realize that the two sides of government, these two pillars, are both getting money from big oil. They're both getting money from big pharma. They're both getting money from big money, like banks. So if they're both drawing from that, then all of this other stuff that we keep being presented with is smoke and mirrors to distract you from the truth of what's actually taking place in government. So there's your first esoteric smackdown, right? And you're watching this alchemical process take place where a sulfurous presidency is being used to stimulate dialogue in our nation. And every time he opens his mouth, new dialogue is created. And the dialogue is okay. Believe me, I think all the dialogue in the world is wonderful. But you have to recognize the context under which this dialogue is given. And you have to ask yourself, is this dialogue for the best interest? In other words, when it's initiated, is this initiation in truth for the best interest of the people who are participating, or is this another distraction? All right, guys, I'm Aubrey Forrest, the Modern Alchemist. This is Talking Politics. I'll be done.